Good evening, good evening. Welcome to Momentum Chat. I am Majida Bay.
And I am John Epstein. Good to see you.
Absolutely, man. This is week 11 of our ABCs of Wealth series. And this week it's kindness and knowledge. All right, you're like, what does this have to do with wealth? Well, you want you to stay tuned, get a pen and paper, tell a friend, share this, and we'll get started in just a moment.
Absolutely.
Good evening once again. I am Majida Bay, your financial conductor, joined as always by my co-host, mentor, coach, friend, Mr. John Epstein Jr., life and financial strategist. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing a lot better than my day started, but I am doing great. I'm doing well enough to be on here today. I didn't want to miss another week. So I'm happy
glad to have you back. Good deal. Yes, definitely glad to have you back. And for our audience, thanks for tuning in. We are continuing our wealth series. And this week we're talking about all things K. So, ABCs of wealth, kindness and knowledge. So I'm sure some of you are asking the question, what is kindness and what does knowledge have to do with wealth? Well, I got a couple of quotes here, right? Because I did a little bit of homework and came across this quote that says, money does not define a person's character or value. Kindness does. And so in the description for this video, I shared that there are things that are more valuable than money. And kindness is one of those things. Absolutely. So can you share from your perspective, John, how does kindness play into wealth, or how can it contribute to wealth?
Well, that triggers back to my faith. I believe God wants to get wealth to his people, but first he has to know he can get it through his people. And the way that can happen is through wealth, through kindness. If money is going to stop at you, what's the sense of you getting it, right? But if it can go past you, if it can go through you, then it can actually go help and inspire and do other things for other people, and also just for mankind in and of itself. And I believe that's where the kindness comes in. Plus, it's a game changer once you learn how to give. Growing up, my mom used to always say, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I can be frank with you now. I knew how good it felt to get. So, giving, it was like, okay, I mean, it's nice. It sounded good, but it wasn't until I actually practiced it. It's not just giving, it's giving with nothing in return. You're not expecting a return. Actually, you don't even want one. Right. And I've gotten some of my biggest returns on things like that.
Yeah.
Whether it been relationships, whether it been just the joy, the feeling I got. I remember the first time my wife and I did it. Tomorrow we'll celebrate 20 years married. And I remember.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a family that we knew. We knew the young man in the family. He worked at a particular retail store here locally. That place is not even in business anymore. And we just kind of knew the family had been struggling. It had some challenges and things like that. And my wife and I, we were actually just ran into them in the store. And we were actually heading out of town the next day for a business trip. I believe we were heading to Las Vegas. And I remember standing in this particular aisle after speaking to him. He left, walked away. And we both just looked at each other and we just knew we were supposed to give a gift to this young man. And and it was funny because we kind of knew, and then we spoke about it. And then we both, we had to come up with a number. Like, what's the number we're going to bless him with, right? And it was funny how we both had the exact same number on our mind. Right? And at that time, this is 19 years ago. This is probably 19, 20 years ago. That number wouldn't have never came to our mind because it was a decent number. It was at that time, it's not a decent number now, but it was a decent number at that time. It was like,
Yeah.
it was, like, wow. Like, especially when we're getting ready to go on a trip the very next day.
Yeah.
Like, next morning we had 6 a.m. flights, right? But we both were in agreement without even speaking to the exact number. And I tell this story because that was the day giving made me high. And I've been chasing that high ever since. And it's always been through giving, but except now it's bigger. It's different. It's sometimes it's to organizations, still to families. Christmas time is a big time we kind of do stuff like that, and but it's just we were both high. I remember we were high the entire trip. We were high, and it felt so good, and it's kind of been a driving force to me building our own family's wealth. The more we can give away. So it's like the more we can get, the more we can give away, the more we can bless.
Absolutely.
We could show kindness to other people, whether it be, I do it, you know this, I do this all the time. If I'm at a Starbucks or some coffee shop, I might buy everybody in the place, whoever's in line, like, right, everybody's in line, the bill is on me until I'm tired of standing there. Or, I'll play that game through a Starbucks. I don't really go to Starbucks anymore. But, you go through the drive-thru and you pay for the person behind you. I'll do that deal, or actually, where I've done it recently is Chick-fil-A. Like, so I pay for everybody behind me. Like, hey, take care. We're gonna take care of everybody behind me, and it was funny because I didn't even know how that worked, right? Because like, I don't even know what they're ordering, right? But so I remember the first time I did it. The first time I did it was at a Starbucks down the street from my house, and I didn't know how it worked. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you pay for the person behind you? So I just asked the young girl, like, okay, how do you pay for the person behind you? And she was like, well, believe it or not, we already got the orders because they're right behind you. Or you give us a number. And then we keep going until that number runs out. And I was like, oh, okay, got you. Right? So I always just do a number because I don't know what they're ordering. And I actually have a separate Starbucks card, which is sad. It's probably got like $30 on it too, that I use specifically for people in uniform. So military, firefighters, police officers, if they're in uniform, that's the card we're using, right? And I've been doing that for a long time. Jesse's 16 now, so I've been doing this for a long time. But that's part of me chasing that high kindness. You're right. Money doesn't change people; it reveals them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing this when I was broke. Really, I shouldn't have been doing it. As a financial manager, right? A financial strategist, I wouldn't even tell clients to do this stuff. But I just knew God was putting it on my heart to do it. And you know what? He's always paid me back. He's always been. I've never been able to outgive God.
I like that.
And
I like that.
And now that I think about it, I haven't been consciously testing him. So I need to like consciously test him. Like, God, I'm about to give a lot away. Let me see if I can beat you, right? But I know I'm never going to.
Right. No, I like that. And I think about that a lot too. I like sometimes where, might be grocery shopping or driving around, and my daughter, especially when I'm with my children, and my oldest daughter, she'll see somebody, asking for money and something like that, and she'll prompt me or encourage me to give. And I'm like, all right, how much? And she'll throw out some crazy number because obviously she doesn't quite understand the value. So it's, it's like whatever number she tells me, it's like, all right, we'll do that. And it's just trying to impress upon her that, like, you're blessed to be a blessing, right? Like, you have a lot of things that you may take for granted, and not everybody has those luxuries, really, if you think about it. Not even just essentials. You have some luxuries that other people aren't in a position to have or don't have. So
and believe it or not, it's a lot of things that we have that are luxuries that we act like they're essentials.
Yeah.
And they're really luxuries.
Running water.
Yeah. So it's good that you're teaching them that, but modeling. We had a great conversation on our patio last night. over some wine and cheese, and our daughter was with us, our 16-year-old. This is stuff we want to do with her more anyway, because she's studying psychology. And, got an email from Vanderbilt University this week. And so it's been a kind of a really cool week since she's been back in school. But we like talking to her and hearing, where her brain is, what's she thinking about, and all those types of things. And one of the things that came up was kindness in how we move about things. And one of the things she said last night, didn't even know you were going to be talking about kindness today. One of the things she brought up was a lot of what she does and how she does things is how it's been modeled to her. Even the amount. So we had wine last night, right? My wife's part of a wine club, but which is funny. She won't drink wine alone, and she doesn't drink it very often at all. But so we got bottles of wine down there that just there, right? So we cut up some cheese, some grapes, blah blah blah, right? And one of the things my daughter talked about was how certain things have been modeled to her in reference to kindness, in reference to giving, but also she brought up wine. Right? She says, it's one thing I've always known. You guys never allow yourselves to go too far. And it was interesting because it's not a conversation we've ever had. Right? She's seen us have some wine, or I'm not a beer guy, so it's normally wine. Right? But she's seen us have that stuff, and she's always been like, I guess we have talked about it, but we never talked to her about limits and things like that. But she said it's been modeled to her. Well, believe it or not, kindness is something that has to be modeled. You can talk a good game, but if you don't model it, your children don't learn how to walk by you teaching them how to walk. It's actually modeled. And I talked about that last night too, how I know a young lady she's my age. I think she's a year older than me. I think she's 51, but she's bow-legged. Right. So I grew up in an era where a lot of kids were bow-legged. Right. Just sometimes it's an act of birth. It's during the time you were born. Right. But what's funny is she has a daughter that's knock-kneed that walks bow-legged. Right. And it was modeled. That's the only thing you can come up with. Now, of course, when I was coming up with her, you didn't know. Right. We didn't know about modeling. At least I didn't. Right. My years in business and being a financial coach and life coach, life strategist rather, has helped me see modeling in another way. But kindness is one of those things that have to be modeled.
That's good stuff. Good stuff.
I know you.
So,
because you're doing it. But also, your dad was a decent model for you. Your mom was a great model. I know Wanda.
Absolutely. Yeah, they definitely. I definitely saw them give, even when in my mind they didn't have, right? Like they gave of themselves, or they served others, and it's kind of back to the first quote about like character. Like that's so much more valuable. And even when I think about wealth, like I truly believe that my wealth is so much greater in my character than it is in my bank account. Like there's a lot more deposits in the character account than there are in the bank account. And the bank account will just reflect that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay with that. I totally agree. Yeah. And I know we're talking about wealth, right? I think we also need to kind of define what is wealth to you. Right? I find it humbling. And also, I think it's part of my wealth is the fact that I have people who reach out to me to ask me to do things like a friend of mine renewed his vows a few days ago. And I had been sick and, had been quarantined. And at the last day of my quarantine is when his vow renewal was. But that's a huge deal that here's somebody who's 10-year anniversary, want you to renew the vows, and I don't take that lightly, so that's part of my wealth. Mm-hmm. Right? But I think now my mom and dad modeled that. Right? They modeled character things that now make, I guess I've modeled them. So now people look to me in certain ways. So a friend of mine was from in town. He came in town from New Jersey, and he even expressed that, like, that's a big deal that people are calling you for this. Now, I was sick, but I'm on the tail end of my sickness, so I was actually starting to answer the phone, and things like fires that need to be put out, and oh my gosh, man, if I start going through the list of stuff, it's like, right? But it's humbling that, first of all, that other men, these were all men that called me, except for one, right? All men. So they trust another man with some pretty tough stuff, right? And looking for my insight and advice on it and how they should move and what they should do and stuff like that. That's part of wealth, right? At least I think so, right? Do you have, I was asking somebody else recently, do you have any friends that you and them have had it falling out, right? Y'all don't had to cuss each other out, but y'all still. No, I'm serious. That's the true friends. When y'all can have a disagreement, it gets kind of nasty, and y'all can clean it up, come to some understanding, and move forward. Oh my gosh, that's a valuable relationship.
Oh, for sure.
You might want to hold on to those. But those are part of my wealth at 49 years old, 50 years old next month.
No, that's good stuff. And I can't say that I've had a falling out with friends, but I've definitely had a disagreement and had to take a break and came back and been like, all right. But sometimes, it's because, having people around you that are willing to be honest with you, that are willing to tell you the truth,
right?
Even when you don't like it, even when it hurts.
Right.
But they, it's because they love you and they want you to get better. So I definitely think that's important.
And maybe I need to clarify. Yeah, maybe I need to clarify. Those types of relationships I have, Cordell Garrett, Sean Gibbons, and Jerry Smith, and Carlton McLeod. I have those relationships with them, and falling outs, and getting into it with each other because of our lack of maturity back then. So we're talking about relationships. Some of them are 30 years old, right? I go back to Cordell since 1991, right? So today my relationships, my friendships, not just with them, but the newer guys I haven't known for 30 years, right? Today we're more mature, so we never have to even get to a cussing out or a falling out, because we communicate in a more mature way that it never even get there. We address things faster too. We don't allow things to fester. We address things faster, right? So if you have relationships that are really strong, really great bonds, relationships, and you never had to have a falling out, I'm not saying that's not a real relationship, right? You just may have been more mature than I was, and more mature than me and some of my fellas were in the process of building that relationship. But I still relish, I still love the fact that we had those.
Yeah.
Because it created something that really nobody can. I think about my relationship with Cordell Garrett. Nobody can really come in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
It just can't. We've been through way too much at this point. Like way too much.
And I believe it's important to relationships have to be tested, right? Like that's what makes them stronger, and that's what strengthens them. So yeah, I honestly believe that relationships are one of my greatest wealth, right? Like not just from my relationship with other people, but relationship with my creator, right? Like those are the things that give me, the most wealth. And, manifesting the physical wealth or the monetary wealth is a byproduct of my investment in those relationships. And so I want to share this other quote that I came across, right? Don't be impressed by money, followers, degrees, and titles. Be impressed by kindness, integrity, humility, and generosity. Sure. And I think in the culture that we live in today, a lot of people are so focused on the external and the tangible things, right? What we can see, that we often overlook and undervalue those intangible things, and the things that make the real difference, like kindness and integrity and humility. And it's something, like you were speaking earlier, that like was ingrained in me, like, and it wasn't even, I don't think it was directly, but just like you said, through modeling, through different teaching, like integrity was of the utmost importance, to the point, and we've talked about this before, even in dealing with clients. And I'll share something as well that my brother-in-law shared with me recently. Even when we're working with clients, like ensuring that it's a win for them.
Yeah.
Even if it means that we not so much take a loss, but take less of a win, if you will.
Absolutely.
And
it's kind of like a band I wear. You know this band that I wear all the time says, "I am second."
I am second.
And it's a young man that was at my house yesterday, and I'm spending time with him. He's going through some challenges in his relationship, so to kind of help his mind. But all these years he's known me, it was just yesterday he asked me, "What is I am second?" And you know me, I don't answer questions. I ask a question back, right? So, and I just wanted him to, hey, what do you think I am second? Think about who's wearing it. But what do you think it is? Right? And of course, he went to my faith, which is pinpoint on. But then he went a little bit further, and that's the part that some stuff was modeled, but some stuff was spoken for us, for me. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I remember my dad always, he had this thing. We lived in Chicago, and he had this thing that if he ever saw somebody broke down on the side of the road, he would help them. So I remember we had this Mercury station wagon, right? And I remember sitting like all the way in the back, because when you're a kid, you like to sit all the way in the back. It's stupid, but right, it's the most dangerous place to be sitting in this thing, but that's what you wanted to do, right? But me, as his oldest, he would make me get out the car with him and help this person change the tire, or if somebody got stuck in snow, very normal in Chicago, right? We help them push it out and all those types of things. And it came back to me today as I was on my way. I was on my way to the hospital today, and I got off the interstate to go, and this guy was pushing a car. Now, I was injured. I was injured. There's no way I could have helped push this car. But it was everything in me to like, oh my God, he needs help, because he was also blocking traffic and everything. He was going the other way. I was going this way. But it was like, those are things that's just modeled. And that's where generosity comes in. But it was modeled for me first. But then my dad actually talked about it. And I remember him saying, he said, especially if it's a woman. I remember him saying this. Especially if it's a woman, because I want you to act like, what if that was your mother? Or what if that was your dad? He said, my mama or my grandmama. I remember him saying it. And I said, okay. That it made sense, because I would want somebody to help my mom. I would want somebody to help my grandmother. Right?
So true.
And he was always respectful. I mean, my dad's a big guy, so pushing a car was no big deal. But at that time, I was really little. But he always made me do it with him. And I never forgot that. And to this day, now times have changed. It's a little dangerous for you to try stuff like that now. And even he's expressed that. He's like, be careful. Make sure I won't tell you what he says, but but he's basically making sure I'm careful, because guys have been killed pulling over the side of the road, helping somebody, right? It was really a setup, or that person was scared, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, in my local area, I can't tell you how many times I've put my flashers on, jumped out of my car, helped somebody push their car into the 7-Eleven parking lot. I mean, I would want to, and I think if we continue to do that, right? So the person I did it for, he probably would have never helped anybody else before. But now that somebody's helped him, maybe now his brain will go to, I need to help people too.
Yeah.
And we let that trickle throughout the world.
I love that. Yeah, this is my last quote on kindness: the currency of a civil society. I think it's a perfect way to define that.
Perfect.
Because what if we all had that mindset that we would give, and we would serve, and we would be generous and kind, and help others, you know, how much better could the world be? You know, too often people are selfish and greedy and looking out for themselves.
Right.
And so
Right.
I love this song by Music Soul Child, and it's called "Give More Love." Right, like the world just needs more love. Give more love.
I actually like that song. Yeah. But that's one of the reasons I have a lot of bands that say a bunch of stuff. But I noticed this the one I keep. Actually, this one stays on my arm. I literally take a shower with this one and everything. I take my wedding rings off more than I take this off. And you know how serious I am about my wedding rings. But even me, I have to remind myself that it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's not about me. It's not about me. And a lot of, you know, I have a family member who, you know, it's kind of known that they don't have many friends, right? And the reason is they never had any friends that they could have it out with, have a disagreement with, agree to disagree, and they keep moving together, right? And that's a tragedy, right? And what I believe is what I've had to learn in my marriage. All relationships, you have to give up your right of being right. Can you give up your right of being right? Because sometimes when you're right, you're wrong. And when you can do that, now you can have some really healthy relationships.
That's good. That's good.
All right.
Well, let's switch gears here and talk about knowledge, because I'm sure more people think, knowledge has more to do with wealth than kindness, right? But and so in terms of knowledge, right, we've all heard the phrase knowledge is power, but I believe a wiser man said that applied knowledge is power. And so it's what you do with the knowledge that is actually of value, more so than the information itself. And I know lots of people who know a lot of stuff but do absolutely nothing with it, and they stay stuck. They stay stagnant. So speak to that a little bit, John. How important is it to apply the knowledge that you learn in order to build wealth?
Yeah, well, no knowledge is valuable until it's been applied. Also, you don't really know something until you apply it. We think we know something. Like, I think I know how to make an apple pie, but if I've never made an apple pie, we don't know. Right? So how much power is that? And that's in any topic. Like, you might know you need to be a better communicator as a husband or a father. You might know but if you don't do it, it holds no value at all, really. So I think it's important, especially when it comes to building wealth. It's and believe it or not, yes, we're talking about knowledge, and knowledge is important, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to know it all. Do you have a good team around you? Majida and I, that's what we do for people. They're busy being engineers, or not my dentist. He's not a client yet. But my chiropractor or my primary at the VA, or right, those guys. He's a doctor. That guy's a chiropractor. Right, this guy owns a CrossFit gym, and right, but that's what they do, and they stay in their lane. The smartest people stay in their lane, and they find great people to put on their team. I was telling a friend that this past week, because he's going through a situation too, right? And it's kind of funny because I was giving props to something, and I was like, I'm impressed, but I wasn't impressed by what was happening. I was impressed the fact that they went and sought the knowledge to do what they were doing. And I was telling them, there's really no such thing as a self-made millionaire. Like, I know that everybody like to say that. There's really no such thing, right? They're all team-made. They had to have a team behind them, next to them, right? Something, right? Most of us have
for sure
ahead of us, right? Like, we have people that we go get knowledge from, right? And I don't care what we're talking about, whether it's business, finance, your relationships, ministry. I always talk about these two guys who the great Billy Graham confided in, right? Now, me and you will never know those two guys' names, but they helped create a Billy Graham. That's incredible to me, right?
Yeah.
And in the spiritual sense, they get all the credit of everything he did too for the kingdom of God. That is so awesome, right? But we'll never know those two guys' names. And that's where knowledge is. It's not necessarily you knowing it all, but at least you have to know some. But then put yourself in a position in a team where you can grasp that knowledge, but more importantly than knowing it is applying it. And that's no matter what we're talking about. We're talking about wealth today. We're talking about money, and that's important. If you don't understand the rule of 72 and the dollar cost averaging and how compound interest works, and then go further into that stuff. What's an index fund? What's an option? Those types of things. Okay, yeah, you should learn that stuff, right? But you don't have to be a guru if you're not planning on doing it for a living like me, right? And still a lot I don't know, but I know who knows it.
Mm-hmm. Right. I was gonna share that. Right, we've heard a friend of ours say, "Know what you know who knows what you don't know." That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. Matter of fact, that guy you're talking about today is his 70th birthday.
Oh, wow. And he's K. Yeah, Cap.
Yep. That's right. So Mr. Greg Cap, shoot, you barely know us, man, but I want you to know we appreciate you. We thank the great Lord that he birthed you into this world. And we thank you, man. Happy 70th birthday, and looking forward for another 30 for you. Absolutely. Another 30, 40 years. We need Mr. Greg Cap around for another 30, 40 years.
Yeah. It's awesome, having people like that who impact your life, right? And there's like little things he said that, you take note of and you remember. But it definitely has, it was another one that I shared this past week when I did the broadcast with my brother and brother-in-law. And it's another phrase from him, and it says, "Every adversity has a seed of benefit equal or greater to the adversity if you look for it." I think he got it from Think and Grow Rich, but I've always heard him say it, so I always give him credit.
Yeah.
But it's little things like that, like the words that make a difference, right? The things that people say or speak into your life. And something that I learned from you a long time ago was like to be what's the word? To be not diligent, but discerning, if you will, about who you allow to speak into your life, right?
Yeah,
like don't just allow.
Yeah. But the Bible even says you can learn from a fool.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you just got to make sure you're taking the right things from that fool, right? So
very true.
And that's where I came up with, learning how to eat the meat and spit out the bones. So certain stuff you're not supposed to swallow. Yeah. Some of the greatest lessons, I don't know if it's the greatest lesson, but some really profound lessons that I got that really impacted my marriage and impacted my fatherhood were messages I was hearing secondhand. In other words, I was in a room. I remember the guys I'm talking about too. One of them allowed Yabby and I to get married in his backyard. And he was talking to his brother-in-law, and it was just certain things he said. And I don't know if his brother-in-law ever got it, but because I was standing there, I got it.
Yeah.
And I've been living by them and repeating them for 2 decades now.
Wow.
And I was just in the vicinity. He wasn't even talking to me.
You were ear hustling.
I was ear hustling. Right? But I know I've made the return. Like that investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know I've made the return on them. I know it. I remember one he said, so the young man I'm talking about, he had a son and a daughter. And I remember him telling his brother-in-law, he said, one of the things I think about when I look in the mirror every morning is, if my son grows up to be just like me, would I be pleased with the outcome? And then he said, if my you've heard me say this before.
Yeah.
He said, if my daughter came home with a man just like me, would I be pleased with the outcome? And he said, if the answer is no, then I got to change me.
Yeah.
Because I'm the only one I can change.
That's good.
And oh my God, that had to be like in the year 2000. I heard him say that. Like, Jesse wasn't even thought of yet, man. But yet, it was profound to me. He was, because it was so right. It was like, he's right. I can't change my wife. I can't change my kids. I can't change, but I can change me.
Yeah. I love that. And that's why, it's important to also seek knowledge, right?
Yeah.
To seek the information, to seek out ways to get better, ways to improve, right? If you look in the mirror, or if you know anything about self-assessing, there's always ways that you can improve. And so when people talk about wealth, like I said earlier, a lot of times they're focused on the external, the tangible, like I need to go get this bag, or I want to, make a lot of money, but it's from the inside out, and I know for myself, when I think about where I'm positioned right now in my life, in my career, as a mother, like all of those things, and it's just like, I feel blessed. I feel truly blessed by the things that I've been afforded and opportunities that have been put in front of me.
Yes.
But I have to say that it's because I've been able to be introduced to people like you, and, meeting people like, your wife, and, others along the way who've really imparted, different things, and I've learned different things from, they're a little further down the path than I was myself. But I have to honestly say that I'm a seeker after truth, right? Like I seek knowledge, I seek those things that are going to help me improve and get better and refine me. And I'm really going through like a transformation now, and I feel where I'm, like I'm really looking at myself and, going through some buffeting to really become who I believe I was created to be.
Yeah.
And it's taking some work, but it's so well worth it. And I certainly believe, I've been listening to Eric Thomas a lot, and he's got his ministry, but he talks about that. He's like, without faith, it's like impossible to please God.
Yeah.
So like I've really been like focused on like what does that look like? Like how do I improve my faith? Yeah. And so that's something that I'm studying right now. Like, how do I get better? Right. And oftentimes, of course, we're like, all right, I get that I need to improve in this area, so I want to get it done now. But there's a process to go through to get to that level. And so working on doing that, constantly focused on that and putting myself in a better position to operate in faith. And I actually shared this with a friend of mine, when I met you and your wife several years ago, and specifically when I saw you all go through the experience with losing your daughter. Like that was like my not my it was the first time I recognized faith in action, right? Like it wasn't just like you all walked your talk, right? It wasn't just saying that you believed and said right, but like, yeah, no, these people really, right? They practice what they preach. And so that was like a seed that was planted like so many years ago. That's, it's I'm a little slow, so it grew like bamboo. So it took a little while to grow to be like, all right, like I see what they're doing, but I'm not sure how I can do it. But I'm gonna just keep watching. Let me just keep learning. And I'm been fortunate to be able to maintain a relationship with you guys and see from a distance even just how that's evolved, because I've seen it get even better, through how you treat your wife. You always speak about her and you honor her and things like that. And it's just like all these little things like, yeah, that's what up. Yeah. You're like taking mental notes about the things that we want to like. And sometimes we need to see it modeled, right? We need to see it, there's this associate that we both know who said a long time at a training, she was like, sometimes we have to walk by faith so others can walk by sight. And so
that was very good too.
Yeah. And so, just being conscious of, how can I be that model for other people? Because as I'm learning and understanding and improving my relationship and my faith, how can that, like, I'm like, all right, I get it now. So how can I help my children get it quicker, right? Like, how can they understand this relationship piece and understand their gifts and talents, and utilizing them to glorify their God, and like all of this stuff is just coming into play. And back to the series on wealth, like, I want them to understand that their true wealth is in their spirit. Like, that's who you are, right? Like, at the center of all of this stuff, right? Like, especially with what's going on now,
for sure.
Like, you can let all of this stuff go, and at the core, like, your wealth is going to come from you building a relationship with the one that created you. And so that relationship, that wealth.
Yeah, this last year, 2 years has shown you who had a solid foundation and whose were shaky. Because even people have come out of their character, right? So you thought they had a certain character, and now things have been shifted and things are moving. And you can kind of see it. But I appreciate your words for our family and how you see us. Yes, we are working on getting better every day, and I'm glad you see that we are even stronger than when you first saw us, when you first met us. But then when you saw us, walk through losing our daughter almost 10 years ago, and then till now, that's a great blessing in and of itself. And if it was the only piece of wealth I was leaving behind, I would be okay with that. I would be okay with my daughter having that type of character, that people can, that she walked by faith so that others can walk by sight. I believe that's a great inheritance, because my scriptures say that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So I'm hoping I get to stay around long enough that I get to meet my children's children, and be able to pass on these same types of wealth tools, I guess you would say, wealth principles, down to them as well. So it's really humbling to know that you over the years that you've known us, you see it. And
absolutely.
And what's really cool about that, I know this part's going to sound really funny, you've seen it even though you also know our flaws. So,
well, I'm not I have flaws of my own, so it's easy not to, like, like, we're all human, right? We have those shortcomings and missteps, but I think a part, and this is something, like I said, that I've been hearing through listening to Eric Thomas as well, is that you can't be faithful alone, right? And that's something
that is so good,
right?
Wow.
And
so true.
To that point, like, you gotta have faithful people around you, and that's probably been the biggest shift in the last couple of years. Is like, I'm surrounding myself with a community of people who, like, model being faithful. Absolutely. And it's making such a tremendous difference in just how my perspective, and like, when you're around people who lack faith, right, like, it's easy to be influenced by that. Like, you may want to do something different, but, like, you're constantly being so it's oh my gosh, it's just
wow.
Like, I was sharing with somebody just recently, like, when it came to relationships, I didn't necessarily have a standard. Like, I have a standard now, and I remember you telling me about a standard years ago, right? But, like, all right, so what is? But I had to be in an environment, and I had to see a standard being modeled.
Bingo.
Like, oh,
bingo.
Yeah, And so I of course, I honor my mother and my father, and they did a great job. They had a great example. But at the same time, it's understanding that, like, when you want to grow to another level, and when you start to have the relationship on your own, right? Like, before, as a child, my parents, introduced me to faith, and they taught me what they could, but they couldn't teach me what they didn't know. Like, we've talked before about finance, like, they couldn't teach you what they didn't know. And so similarly, when it came to having a relationship, right, like, they couldn't teach me what they didn't know. And so recognizing now that, like, all right, there's a piece that's missing. Like, I got the character, I got the principles, but I missed the relationship, right? Like, how does that, like, what does that look like,
Yeah.
And so now understanding that, like, all right, this faith journey is more about the relationship than the religion. Because, you know, it was always about religion, you know, like, all right, you got to practice these tenets.
You got it.
You got to do this stuff.
You got it.
And like that stuff was never like, all right, I can do all of this stuff, but
what you
still
saw
feel
with my wife,
unfulfilled.
What you saw with my wife and I was a relationship, and it wasn't a relationship between us. It was a relationship between us and him. And it was like we've said numerous times, we don't even think our marriage is really about us. We just get to enjoy it. But our marriage isn't really about us. It's about modeling on earth God's love for his people, for his church on earth.
Yeah.
That's what our marriage is about. So our marriage really isn't even about us. It's a bigger thing than us. We're just pawns on the chessboard. But we're okay with it because, you know, we get to have fun and enjoy each other, enjoy the family we've built and the other stuff we built in the process. And then the great relationships we have outside of these four walls, like with you and your family and Bakar. And just fun. You know? So this has been a great talk. Majid, I'm
Mommy,
ice cream.
Okay.
Your little one there.
Yeah. All right. I'm almost done. All right. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Count to 2. Come on, Ma. Okay. Well, yeah. So I know we've been talking about kindness and knowledge, and wealth is it's vast, but it's also simple, right? Like I think it's simple to have wealth when you focus on the right things, when you place the important. Wait a minute.
Yes, I agree.
Mommy.
And so, hey, for those that have been listening, if you got some value out of this, definitely share it, like it, leave us a comment, reach out to us, let us know if you have any questions. And I know that, you know what I love too, John, about you and your wife, like you're unapologetic about your faith and recognizing that, and this is something that, you know, I've heard a lot of times growing up, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And in such a time as we're in right now, I think it's so important that people stand for something. And know what you stand for and be solid on that, because it's so easy to get influenced or pulled in one way or another.
Yeah.
And
your
wealth has to be yours. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's actually been tugging on my heart a lot recently, because as you know, I served in the military, so I fought for the rights for people to stand. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing many people stand, and it hurts, right? And I'm not talking about that you got to stand for the same things I believe. I didn't fight for that. I fought for you to have the right to, right? So even if it's something I disagree with, right? I fought for the right for you to have the freedom to say that and think that and whatever. Now, of course, you know, don't let your thoughts and what you believe, you know, end up on me. Right. Don't force me to have your belief. But I fought for that right. And I really believe people should stand. And I you know me, I've taken that on, you know, decades ago, that I was going to stand for something. Right. And as my life progressed, it got clearer what I stood for. I solidified what I stood for. But it also got a little bit broader too. All right. So I guess yeah, I am unapologetically me.
Only way to be. Well, hey.
And it allows me to love people genuinely.
That's good.
Even if I don't agree with them, I can still love them.
That's good. Well, hey, I certainly appreciate you hopping on this week, John. Glad you're feeling better than you were this morning.
Right.
It's certainly better than you were last week.
Yes,
so we definitely look forward to continuing this series. We got 15 more weeks to go. And we definitely hope you'll stay tuned, share with others, and we'll be back here next week to continue this series when we talk about all things L. So you'll find out next week what L words we're going to come up with to continue the series.
It's a surprise, everyone. Just tune back in next week.
For sure. Any final words, John, before we hop out of here?
Hey, it's a privilege to be able to speak with each and every one of you each week. And Majida, you're a great host. Glad you even came up with the idea of doing this every week. And we're going to take this throughout the end of the year, talking about wealth and helping people one family at a time. So we appreciate you listening.
Sorry, John. I just thought about it. It is Life Insurance Awareness Month. Side note. So that'll be an easy topic for next week. Life insurance.
Easy. Matter of fact, we'll make it interactive next
week. Look, Mommy.
For sure. Well, y'all have a great week, and we'll see you guys next week.
Take care.